I've lost over 35 pounds since starting my cut. And whenever I give advice to anyone who's trying to lose weight and lose fat, one of the most abundant advice that I give them is that their breakfast or their first meal of the day really matters a lot when trying to lose weight. Because if you make the bad decision or you make the wrong decision when it comes to how you eat, what time you eat, or anything about the structure of your breakfast, it can really mess up with your routine and overall progress. And so the biggest thing that I think matters when it comes to your breakfast is what type of food you eat, right? And so obviously the first thing that you need to take into consideration is that your meal should be composed of whole, nutritious, single ingredient foods, right? And that's the premise of pretty much every single video that I make. Focus on whole, nutritious food. So much so that I have made a whole course on how you can eat healthy and still lose weight. It is the first link in the description if you want to check it out. But that is the first piece of advice of how you want to structure your breakfast. Make it whole, nutritious foods. When you think of whole, nutritious foods, you should think of like things that are just single ingredients. So like a tomato, a piece of steak, a piece of chicken breast, right? Not a pack of Oreos, not bread even, right? Unless it's sourdough and you can identify every single ingredient in there without having to search it up. If you're just getting random, like your convenience store white bread, and there's some like modified ingredients there, there's some like codes like E93 or something, and you have to search that up, you probably don't want to eat that, right? And we all know why. It's not healthy. It messes up with your gut microbiome, a lot of things depending on the ingredients. But as soon as you focus on whole nutritious foods, it's gonna make sure you get a lot of your micronutrients, and also you're gonna feel more satiated because it's packed with nutrients. Your body feels satiated and satisfied. So that ticks one of the checklists. Another thing you want to focus on is the macronutrient composition. We first want to focus on the micronutrient composition because it really affects your mood and how you feel and your energy, right? Because if you lack nutrients, then your body is not going to function. Then we want to focus on macronutrients more so for more of that satiating feeling, right? And so you probably know that when it comes at least to carbs, there's a difference between single or simple carbs and complex carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates like, oats that have a lot of fiber compared to like bread, which is a white toast. That's a good example. It's a very simple carbohydrate. And so oats are going to fill you up for longer. But more so on that point, if you compare carbs in general with proteins and fats, then we would put proteins on the most satiating macronutrients, and then fats, and then carbs. And so with that logic, then you want to start off your day, or your first meal of the day, and pack it with proteins and fats, and probably lower it on the carbohydrate end, right? Not saying to go zero carbs, we're not on a carnivore or keto diet. But, for example, my breakfast for the last, I don't know how long, at least 3 months or longer, has just been lean ground beef and eggs, boiled eggs, scrambled eggs, sunny side up, whatever, just eggs in general, right? And that's pretty much my breakfast. If I'm really, really fatigued, I'll add in some dates just for quick energy, especially if it's like before I work out or anything. But I usually work out fasted, and so after my workout, I'll just have my protein, first of all for the recovery and muscle synthesis, and also for the satiating feeling. When I eat that meal, the ground beef and eggs, which are packed in proteins, especially, and fats. That's a big thing that a lot of people miss when trying to lose weight. They think that they need to eat low fat to lose weight, as if like the fat you're gonna eat is automatically gonna be stored as fat. No, if you're in a calorie deficit, then your body's gonna use everything that you eat, and it's gonna use a bit of the fat storage that you have anyways, right? And so actually doesn't matter what you eat that much when it comes to just specifically weight and fat loss. Sure, the way you feel, it matters what you eat. In terms of weight loss, you can be eating Oreos, but if you're in a calorie deficit, you're gonna lose weight. Sure, some of it will be protein because you're not hitting your protein goals, but the fact that we're packing our breakfast with protein and fats, we're already gonna be covering a lot of our protein goal. And so that's exactly why I start off my day with high protein and high fats. Don't be scared of high fats. And it will not be stored as fat storage. It will be burned off and consumed by your body. Because when you go low fat, sure, you can lose weight, right? And you can up your carbs, which is good for temporary energy. Your mood and your hormones are not going to be regulated, because a lot of your hormones, especially like testosterone is the main one, is actually derived from cholesterol. And so if you're not getting enough fats and therefore not enough cholesterol, you're just going to feel fatigued and low energy because you're not getting enough testosterone. And so once you focus on whole foods and then the macronutrient composition, what else do you want to focus on? Another thing you want to focus on is how much water you're ingesting. Because it's a little bit of a hack. Like if you just fill up your stomach with water, then you're just going to get filled up faster. So what I do, my hack for this is that I have like a 1 liter bottle, right? And so what I do is I fill it up. I drink a liter before my breakfast, and then I'll drink a liter after my breakfast. That's just 2 liters anyways, because I'm trying to hit 3 to 4 liters of water a day anyways. So if I can easily just gulp 1 liter before my breakfast, have my meal, I'm pretty much filled up by then, but then just get another liter after, bro, easy. I'm literally full for the next 4 or 5 hours. Even if the meal is like technically 1,200 to 1,300 calories. And so once I do that, then I'm basically good for the next 3-4 hours, at least, more like 5. And so with that being said, if you do all these hacks, then the next big thing that I believe really matters when it comes to losing weight and actually like just keeping off that hunger until the end of the day, which is the biggest problem for people, right? The reason why the breakfast is important is because it can really matter how much your urges for binge eating are at night. Because that's the biggest problem when it comes to weight loss. People always just ruin their progress at night, like literally like an hour before sleeping. And that's just so unfortunate, because you've worked hard the whole day just to ruin your progress. Not just the progress for that day, probably the progress for the whole week, by just eating for an extra half an hour just before you sleep. And so the next thing that matters, according to that logic, is what time you have your breakfast. That's exactly why I break my fast no earlier than 2-3 p.m. The most regular time I have my breakfast is around 4 p.m. Sure, you know what? That might not work for some people. Some people might get really tired, right? I wake up at 5 a.m., but I still just push it back to 4 p.m. because I know myself, I'm gonna get really hungry. I'm gonna get a big urge to binge eat, right? I've always been a big binge eater. And so I try to push it as late as I can without getting myself too fatigued, right? Like by 3 p.m., I do get like pretty fatigued, so that's when I get in my meal, right? But just pushing it back as much as you can, even if it's noon, honestly a lot better than like having breakfast at 8 a.m. because then you're just gonna be hungry for the rest of the day. If you can just train your body, just do some sort of intermittent fasting, your body will get used to it, so that you won't really get hungry until like an hour before your meal. Trust me when I say this, it might not sound intuitive, but when you try and when you train your body to fasting for like the same eating cycle, you don't want to switch up the eating cycles every day. If you're going to stick to an eating cycle, make it the same consistent one for every single day of the week. So even if you give yourself an 8-hour feeding window, I give mine around 4 now. But even honestly, a 6-hour cycle, this is probably what you should do, honestly. You do like 18 hours fasting and 6 hours of eating. So let's say you want to eat at 2 p.m. and then you get until 8 p.m. to eat, but you can't eat outside of that. Obviously, doesn't mean eat as much as you want. You can still go over your maintenance calories and go on a surplus, but then fit in those calories in 6 hours. That way, you won't even be hungry. Let's say you start eating from 2 to 8. I guarantee you won't be hungry before 12. Before noon, you won't even feel the hunger once you've done it for like a week. And then anytime after 12, you start getting like slowly, you'll get hungrier. And then at 2, you just get really hungry. That's your signal to just go make your meal, go eat it. And then you can eat as much as you want until 8. Not as much as you want, but you can spread it out as much as you want. And so if you sleep at 10, theoretically, that's only like 2 hours you have to deal with for not eating. That's only 2 hours that you can potentially get hungry again. It's a lot better than having breakfast really early and then basically finishing your calories a lot earlier in the day. Then you have to fight off a lot more hours of being hungry. And some more tactics for pushing your eating cycle could be coffee in the morning. I drink coffee every single day. A lot of water, a lot of electrolytes, so that you actually still have some sort of energy. If you're dehydrated, which can be either too little water or too little electrolytes, you're gonna feel fatigued. You're gonna get dizzy, and so you're gonna think, oh, I must be really like malnourished. I need to eat. But it's not always that. Sometimes you're dehydrated. Not enough water or not enough electrolytes or a mix of both. So just wake up in the morning, go up a liter right after you wake up with like half a teaspoon of salt. That should cover up most of your electrolytes. You can even get an electrolyte mix if you really want. And then just have a coffee around like Huberman, which is the person or professor that I follow. He's online. He has a podcast, and he says to not ingest coffee 90 minutes or 60 minutes don't ingest coffee until at least 60 minutes or 90 minutes after waking up. So if you wake up at 5, then don't ingest it probably until at least 6:30 a.m. Don't push your coffee too late because it's going to mess up your sleep. So I just have my coffee around 6:30 to 7 a.m. And it's good because then I'll just have my workout right after. I'll work out between around like 8 a.m. And so just having that coffee right before the workout at least gives me a decent amount of energy for the workout. And also it's an appetite suppressant, which helps me fast for longer. And so yeah, honestly right now it's around like 7:30. Like I know I won't be hungry until 2 p.m. So I'm just chilling, just having water, black coffee. That's about it. Honestly, it's a lot easier when you intermittent fast, especially if you're pushing your eating cycle later in the day. Not too late so that you're eating just before bed, because although that would honestly be ideal in terms of hunger, it's going to mess up your sleep. You're going to wake up in the middle of the night and then you never know. If you mess up your sleep, you mess up your mood for the next day, your energy levels, and then you're automatically going to get more hunger hormones, ghrelin, when you're sleep deprived. So you want to make sure your sleep is on point or as best as possible. So you don't want to eat until like 3 hours before bed. And even your water, you shouldn't be drinking until 3 to 2 hours before bed. So if you're sleeping at 10 p.m., you don't want to eat past 7, and you don't want to really drink much water after hey, you can have a really small sips if you need it, like if your throat is really dry, but just don't be gulping up your water, because you're just gonna wake up in the middle of the night to pee. It's gonna mess up with your sleep cycle, and you're not gonna be as energetic the next day, and that all plays into your hunger, because weight loss is like a marathon, so you need to make sure every single bit of it is good. It's not going to be a sprint where you're going to lose all the weight in a week or 2 weeks, right? So you want to make sure you're just consistent. You want to have very consistent days. You don't want to have a really high day and then a very low day, right? So honestly, that's pretty much the best advice I can give you when it comes to structuring your breakfast in order to help you lose weight and still eating healthy at the same time. Remember, still whole, nutritious food. If you're eating Oreos or any processed junk for any meals every day, let alone not just breakfast, then you're just going to be messing up your nutrition, your health, your hormones, and you're going to increase your hunger hormones. You're going to binge eat more, and there's no point of being in a calorie deficit if you're just going to ruin it with a binge eat cycle. And so if you want to learn more on how you can exactly lose weight, have the whole protocol to eat healthy and lose weight, still feel as energetic as possible, and just make your life a lot easier, then you might want to check out my course. It's the first link in the description, and I'll teach you to do all of that, and I'll see you there.